All right. What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, almost. Figured I might as well jump on here and talk about Boise State Penn State before the ball drops here. I'm in Central Time, so 10:15. Technically, I have 2 hours to go. But if anybody has any questions, thoughts on that game, put it in the chat. Just kind of live reaction to what's going on. I thought Boise State acquitted itself well. They deserved to be here. It was a fun game, competitive game. Yes, it was a 17-point difference, 31-14 the final score, but it was fun, right? I mean, that game was close until, the final bit there when Boise was down 10 and they missed a field goal. Penn State long run by Katron Allen, and that's it. So, Penn State, good team, deserved to win. Probably would have won by a lot more if they had some better play calling. What in the world was going on there? I don't know. So that was something. So if you guys are watching this, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Just takes 1 second. Just trying to grow this thing on my own as we figure out kind of what's going on. So yeah. So let's also, by the way, Ashton Genty does not break the rushing record. He finished, what was the final total here? He was 131 away. He finished at 104. So what, 27 yards away he was from Barry Sanders' official record, not including the unofficial record, which doesn't include Barry Sanders' bowl game. Why does the official record not include bowl games prior to 2002? I have no idea. I've been meaning to ask the NCAA why that is the case. It's not hard. We know how many yards Barry Sanders rushed for in that game. We can include it. It will be okay. But still, Ashton Genty, unbelievable player, really fun. He got my first place Heisman vote. Although it was really close. Travis Hunter, more than a deserving champion. So what you guys think of the game? Did Penn State, did Boise State deserve to be here? Do you think they proved they didn't? Should they not have gotten the bye? Do you think Penn State's really good? Can Penn State win it all? It was a rough start. It was a rough start for Boise to miss the field goal early on, and then they're down 14-0 pretty quickly, and you're like, oh boy. It was going to be another painful night on Twitter of everybody complaining about everything. Certain teams don't deserve the bye. Certain teams don't deserve to be here. I was prepared for us to get down there. That did not happen, thankfully. Good on Boise State for pushing back. I mean, they fall behind like that, and in the end, they end up having more yards than Penn State in the end. They crossed 400 total yards. So does this count as a close game? They lose by 17. I know we keep talking about the blowouts, but this one was, if you make one field goal, it's a one score game in the fourth quarter. I would consider that pretty close, even though the final score turned out to be what it was. Weston Long says, I'm a Nebraska fan, and that was one of the more disappointing games I can remember. I just feel empty, like a Husker game. Boise State absolutely deserved to be here. They easily could have made it a game even win. Weston, don't be too bad. Nebraska won their bowl game this year. They won a one score game. Things are looking up for the Huskers. It's a pretty good spot. So it was like the underdog in you roots for Boise State to win this game, and yet you want to reach through your screen and grab Andy Kotelnicki, the Penn State offensive coordinator, and just go like, what are you doing? Run the ball. Katron Allen was averaging like 7 yards a carry in the first half, and they're calling passes. They're just unbelievably weird play calling. There was that one in the second half. I think it was a 3rd and 1. They call the play action roll out throw that goes incomplete, and they punt the ball away when it looked like Penn State was going to put the game away. Just like, what are you doing, guys? That was crazy. So Penn State's currently up to get the Fiesta Bowl trophy. That is the tallest trophy I think I've ever seen in college football. There might be some rivalry trophies that are a little bit different, but if you've ever seen it, it's like, that thing's got to be a good 4 feet tall, that Fiesta Bowl trophy. One T. Belcher once says, I think Boise State had the proverbial puncher's chance. Penn State is a better team, but susceptible to weird things happening. Luckily for them, it was a very unweird game. I don't know if I'd say it was an unweird game. I think it was a pretty weird game. You had Ashton Genty fumbling twice. He'd fumbled twice all season. You have Boise State's kicker, who is third all time in field goals made. He was 4 away from tying the record for field goals made. Goes 0 for 2 in this game. You have the bizarre play calling from Penn State. You had Abdul Carter get hurt. He never came back. We'll have to wait and see kind of what his status was. But I thought it was a very weird game. But let's talk about Penn State here. They're getting the trophy right now. On to the semifinal. I was at Penn State SMU the first round game, and they're such a frustrating team in that they always make things harder than they need to be, just unnecessarily with weird turnovers. Drew Aller misses a wide open Tyler Warren on a third down to open the second half. And you're just like, this is so frustrating. And yet you'll see the throw that Aller made on that first touchdown pass. The last touchdown pass to Tyler Warren, you see he has a third and long run, picks up the first down, leads to a touchdown. You're like, you can see the pieces early on. We're saying, hey, is Drew Aller, if he plays really well, could he end up deciding to actually go to the NFL? And then you see some of the other throws he makes, and you're like, what are you doing, man? So they don't make it easy, Penn State. They've got the pieces, they've got enough pieces there. They can really run the ball. Let me look up the stats here. What did Penn State finish with on the ground? They finished with 216 rushing yards, 5.3 yards per rush. But that does include Drew Aller taking 3 sacks. Yards per rush, sack adjusted, Penn State, 6.6 yards per rush. So take out the sacks, 6.6 yards per rush. They can run the ball pretty well. And guess what? Notre Dame and Georgia's rush defense on the season, not great. Georgia's been up and down. They did shut down Texas, but statistically, not a great rush defense. So can Penn State beat Georgia, beat Notre Dame, and go to the national championship? I think so. But that's the hurdle. That's the hurdle that they still have to make. We know Penn State can beat these types of teams. I mean, I picked Penn State to go to the semifinal myself, not just because of who they're playing, but James Franklin, his teams, they beat teams that they're better than. When you have more talent, he wins those games. And that's what we've seen these first two. Going up against Notre Dame and Georgia is going to be a little bit of a different situation. Weston responding to the Nebraska. Hey, I think Nebraska can be a CFP team next year. Seriously, see the transfer class. As for this game, BSU had their chances. They just couldn't execute. This was very close to being a classic. Maybe a Tennessee CFP team, Nebraska, but a CFP team nonetheless. Look, it's possible. I like the defense. They stepped up. Raiola, you give him another year to get better. I think Nebraska can certainly make a push. Who saw Indiana coming this year? Who saw SMU coming like this year? I'm not going to rule anybody out. That's the joy of the 12-team playoff. You feel like you have a chance. Everybody has a chance when the season starts. So I certainly think it's think it's possible. So with Penn State, keep running the ball. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, 2 really good running backs. And if you can run the ball on Georgia or Notre Dame, you got a chance. And as long as Drew Aller plays, if you get the good Drew Aller, you can win it all. If you don't, you won't. He finished 13 for 25 passing, 171 yards, but he did have 3 touchdowns. And they were good touchdown passes too. Like they were legitimately really good throws. So, we'll see. Boise State, Maddox Madsen, tough finish, 23 for 35, 304 yards. Mostly looked okay. 3 interceptions, one of them at the end of the game. I'm not necessarily going to count that. The one interception after they had scored the touchdown to cut it to 3, I think, in the third quarter. But the hands to the face penalty nullified that. That leads to an interception at the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was a good call, by the way. ESPN circled the wrong guy. It wasn't on the right guard. It was on the right tackle. Pretty clear. Penn State guy's helmet comes right off. It's a hands to the face penalty. But again, Boise State was right there a couple of times. You make your field goals. They had 3 drives. I guess if you count the end, if you want to count the end of the game, the last drive, they had 4 drives that reached inside Penn State's 30-yard line that got 0 points out of them. You lose by 17 points, that adds up pretty quickly. Those field goal misses, you make those field goals, it's an 11-point game. If they're touchdowns, it's a 3-point game. Like obviously things can play out differently, but the game was there to be had for Boise State. And I felt the same way about SMU. As weird as that game was, as over as that game felt early on, it felt like SMU could have had a chance if it just didn't step on its own feet. And it did that several times. Kevin Jennings misses the wide open 4th down touchdown on the first drive, 2 pick sixes, another interception in the red zone. You can make a case that's a 28-point swing in a game you lost by 28 points. Like if you just don't make killer mistakes, you avoid the mistakes, play clean enough, you have a chance. And the problem was Boise State couldn't do that. 2 Ashton Jeanty fumbles, 2 missed field goals, several drives that didn't finish in the end zone. So would have liked the game to be closer at the end, but it was what it was. Weston Long, SMU was definitely a top 10 team. Horrific mistakes in that PSU game. Was thinking the same thing the entire time. Yeah, like I was there. Like down to down, SMU was hanging with Penn State for the most part for most of that game. They just you give up 2 pick sixes. I mean, what are you doing? Like you have no shot when that happens, and another interception in the red zone. So, but Boise State did the same thing ultimately. They didn't make as many of them. Penn State also made a lot more mistakes in this game than it did against SMU. Penn State played pretty clean against SMU. That's why they were able to win handily without really doing all that much. But in this game, Penn State made mistakes, and Boise State took advantage of them while they could. Yeah. So Madsen, okay, so he threw 2 interceptions in the final 4 minutes, Madsen did. That's when you're down 17. That's, you got to force it. Those are on him, but you look at the box score overall for Madsen, and I think that was a pretty good day overall. Ashton Jeanty's night, 30 carries, 104 yards, long of 26, 3.5 yards per carry. And that 26 was on a 3rd and 21 run when Boise State was kind of giving up, and he hits that play. Credit to Penn State. They tackled the hell out of him. They did a really good job wrapping up. There were moments where Jeanty would get to the second level, and you could see he's got the spacing. He's ready to explode. And then 2 or 3 Penn State guys are right on him. They were really ready for him. And credit to Penn State for doing that. They played really well there. Jeanty does not break the record. Finishes 27 yards away from tying the single season rushing record. Official record, not the unofficial record. I thought Boise's receivers played well, made some tough catches. Just ultimately didn't have enough firepower. Just kind of didn't have the horses, pun maybe intended, that Penn State did, and that ultimately won out in the end. But I don't know. Like, as horrible as we all felt coming out of those first round games with everybody complaining about everything, that didn't feel like that in this game. Yes, you spot Penn State 14 points off the bat, you got to come back. But other than that, the game was even. I mean, again, Boise State, 412 yards, 5.5 yards per play. Those are pretty good numbers. Penn State, 387 yards, 5.9 yards per play. Like, pretty close. Couple of field goals, couple of turnovers. Go the other way. And there you go. So, anybody else have any questions about this game or tomorrow's game? What's the first game? First game is Texas, Arizona State, Peach Bowl. Then we've got the Rose Bowl, Oregon, Ohio State. Then we've got the Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame, Georgia. My picks in those games, Texas, Oregon, and Notre Dame. I am 5-0 on bracket picks so far. Texas, Arizona State. Their blowout potential is there just because Texas is so good at stopping the run, and it's the one thing that Arizona State does really well. But maybe Arizona State puts out a Boise State-like performance, plays and can stay in it. I hope so. I'm tired of all these complaints. If anybody read my column today on The Athletic after Alabama lost to Michigan, a Michigan team that was without several of its star players. Alabama's whole team opted in. Michigan's team didn't. Michigan wins that game 19-13. And so I wrote a column for The Athletic that SMU and Indiana deserve an apology from the college football pundits, many of them on TV, who just dragged Indiana and SMU, questioning whether or not they deserve to be there. Not questioning, saying they didn't deserve to be there, only to see Tennessee do the exact same thing. And then today we see Alabama lose to Michigan. That's the Alabama team you were riding for. That's the Alabama team you think, oh, yeah, they should have been in the playoff. You sure they would have been closer to Penn State? You sure they would have played closer with Notre Dame? You sure? Because I'm not sure. And so for Indiana to get dragged like that, I did not think was fair. And I've gotten a lot of texts from coaches and people in college football thanking me for that. I won't say their names, but I appreciate everybody for reading it. But yeah, man, I think the 12-team playoff's been awesome. It's been fun. It made the regular season more stakes, more fun, more big games. The first round campus sites were awesome. I'd love to have those in the quarterfinals. And then the first quarterfinal we got was a fun game. And Boise State deserved to be there. Boise State deserved to have that first round bye. If you take away the first round byes for conference champions, you're devaluing the regular season. That's going to be a big point of discussion at the championship game when the commissioners meet and talk about the playoff future. So we'll see. But yeah, it's almost New Year here. We go for about 17 minutes. Appreciate everybody for popping on. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like the channel. It takes 2 seconds. Just kind of growing this thing on my own. Just wanted to come on and talk to somebody about these games, even if it's just talking to myself. I appreciate everybody who's there for listening. So appreciate everybody watching. We will be live tomorrow after the last game, after the Sugar Bowl on the Until Saturday YouTube channel. So make sure you're over there to watch that. Me, David Uman, Damian Harris. We'll be good to go talking all that. I'm excited, man. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. 3 playoff games. Hopefully we get some good games. It's going to be a lot of fun. College football is great. We love it. So appreciate you guys. See you in the next one.